Do you remember the name Sharon Tate? It was a huge, huge story back in 1969. This beautiful young actress was married to director Roman Polanski, was about to give birth to their very first child, and then she and 4 other people were murdered in her home by followers of Charles Manson.
Now, for the first time, the Tate family has opened its extensive collection of letters, recordings, and unpublished memoirs about the case. They are all in a new book called Restless Souls, the Sharon Tate family's account of stardom, the Manson murders, and a crusade for justice. And the authors are with us in Studio 57 this morning. Brie Tate is Sharon's niece, and longtime family friend Elisa StatMAN is here as well. Good morning to the both of you.
Good morning. How are you?
So, Brie, these are things that, this obviously happened before you were born, things that have been in your family and were collected. Why now? Why put all of these documents together now and put this book out?
Well, for me, it was really just about finishing something that everyone in my family had started. You know, my mom tried to write an autobiography, my grandmother tried, my papa tried, and nothing was ever published. So this is kind of my way of honoring them and finishing what they started.
The title of the book says, in part, Crusade for Justice. What's the justice that you both are seeking?
Keeping these people behind bars. That was what my Nana really dedicated her life to.
I mean, part of the reason why your grandmother's story is so important is because of the work that she did. She was very reluctant to get involved, but when she saw that there was a chance that they could be paroled, she started speaking up. And in part because of the work that your grandmother did, we now have victim impact statements, true?
True, yeah. She was one of the first to do so. Victims were not allowed to go to parole hearings and give their impact statements, and now the victims can go, or the families of the victims.
How much was this talked about in your family growing up?
You know, the murder itself was never really talked about too much per se, but Sharon was definitely talked about very much. She was, you know, a big part of my life. Photos were all around the house of Sharon. So.
And at the time of the murder, she was 8 months pregnant, which also added to the attraction of the story. But at the time, I vaguely remember there were so many misconceptions, Elise, and that's part of the reason why you two decided that you wanted to write the book. For instance, I remember something, it was a big drug-filled, orgy-filled house, that there was a lot of activity in and out of the house, and you were saying none of that was true. That these were just 5 friends.
Yeah, absolutely. And even it went so far as, you know, the headline that always sticks with me is "Live freaky, die freaky," as if somehow they had brought the murders on themselves. And that was a horrible, horrible thing for this family to see in the headlines every day. You know, that their daughter had somehow, by her actions, which, you know, none of them were true, with the drugs and the sex and the orgies and the black magic, none of it was true, and yet to see that people were in a way blaming her for these murders, and it was crazy, it was horrible.
Because they were truly just innocent people.
Absolutely,
and the Manson...
innocent in their own homes, you know, in for the night, expecting to wake up to another day.
Some of the things which are coming out along with this book, there were recordings that were kept by the family. We have one of them that we want to play, because I'm sure no one's really heard it before.
Roman will be here in 2 weeks. He's doing a film out of a book called Rosemary's Baby, which you should read. It's a fantastic book. Oh yeah, by the way, Roman's just like you. He smokes cigars. He's very sensitive and stubborn. He's he makes decisions and nothing changes them.
Sharon, talking about Roman Polanski, this is a recording she had made for her father to tell him sort of an audio letter. He played a really significant role in the investigation, it turns out, of the murders. Talk to us a little bit about that, because he'd been a military intelligence officer, correct?
He was an intelligence officer, and at night he would go and stake out the house where Sharon was living. He would go on the cul-de-sac above and watch below. And what happened was, you know, after months and months of watching, 2 bikers showed up. And Sharon's house wasn't easy to find at the time, and they seemed to know the neighborhood really, really well, and they were at the gate for a long time and taunting the dogs into a frenzy. So he followed them. He followed them back to what turned out to be the Spahns Movie Ranch, where the Manson family was hiding out.
And was very instrumental in helping the police. That's something that most people don't know either, the role that your grandfather played. And I also thought this was such a gruesome detail, too. And I think it's something people don't think about, that when a horrible crime occurs, somebody has to go and clean it up. Somebody has to go in there and take care of it. And as it turns out, it was your grandfather who did that. And then later on to read that Sharon Tate was renting the house, and then your family was sued for damages to the house.
Yeah, exactly. So my papa had to
I
go
thought that
upstairs
was
and clean it all up.
Yeah, so your grandfather had to go and clean up the mess that was left, and then your families later sued. I just thought that was such a cruel and unkind thing.
It is the absolute worst thing that can happen to a victim's family, and the callousness in which the owner of the house did that. To blame them, he basically took on, blaming the victims, and filing a $250,000 lawsuit for damages sustained during the murders. I don't think it gets any worse than that. And the vision of a father on his hands and knees scrubbing up his daughter's blood is just really horrible. And he continued that lawsuit well after the Manson family was caught. He never let it go.
Well, if it's one thing that you want to accomplish is that we remember the names of the victims, because for most people we know Sharon Tate and we know Charles Manson. We don't know any of the other players involved, and you want to make sure that the victims in this horrible crime are never forgotten.
Yeah,
so
I think
some
people,
comfort in that, I hope.
Yeah, I think people remember the crimes, and they certainly remember the Manson family, but certainly the victims have been overshadowed in this case for many, many years.
All right, Brie Tateman and Elisa StatMAN, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Restless Souls, thanks. Restless Souls is now available in your favorite bookstore or online.